Get the upper hand on your competition with SCUF controllers. Use code OGXRAYZ to get 5% off your entire order. Yo guys, what's up? It's XRAYZ and welcome back to another Call of Duty Zombies video. So I don't know if this is exactly a zombie origins video or zombie theories. I'm assuming it's gonna be just a zombies video, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Richtofen, specifically about schizophrenia and how this is something that the community thought that Richtofen had for a long time. And it turns out that in Black Ops 3, one of the things that was kind of tied in and was a loose end that was kind of tied down was the fact that Richtofen in fact was not schizophrenic, but instead was being manipulated by the Apothecon, or by the corrupted beings known as Apothecons, who were then manipulating Richtofen into trying to start this whole gigantic grand scheme that ended up affecting multiple timelines and multiple universes. Pretty crazy stuff. I kind of wanted to go through, mention what schizophrenia is, and then after that talk about the history of Richtofen, how it started off as something that was thought to be schizophrenia that eventually became known as just him being manipulated by these aliens. And you know, throughout the history of Call of Duty Treyarch Zombies, we've gotten to learn more about Richtofen. He kind of went from this like super jerk dick dude over to becoming like this really ingenious guy who still a little ambiguous. We don't know if he's good, if he's evil. By the end of Black Ops 3, we kind of assume that he's a good person who's just trying to do the right thing, and even his relationship with the rest of the original crew gets a lot better. It's definitely a better relationship than what we saw back in World at War and in Black Ops 1. Both of those relationships were kind of, they hated him because he experimented on them, but then we got to see this new generation from Origins who kind of gets to know each other, and while they're still a little apprehensive, they kind of have come to respect each other and maybe even see each other as friends. So anyways, we'll talk about that later on, but let's go ahead and talk about schizophrenia first. Now, schizophrenia is a serious mental illness that interferes with a person's ability to think clearly, manage emotions, make decisions, and relate to others. It is a complex, long-term medical illness affecting about 1% of Americans. Although schizophrenia can occur at any age, the average age of onset tends to be in the late teens to the early 20s for men and the late 20s to early 30s for women. It is uncommon for schizophrenia to be diagnosed in a person younger than 12 or older than 40. It is possible to live well with schizophrenia. Now, we already know some of those seem to be things that the original Richtofen had. You know, he had a hard time relating to people. He saw a lot of crazy ass situations and was unaffected by that. So, you know, there's a lot of things that seem like symptoms of schizophrenia, and it might even be a combination. If you can imagine being in Richtofen's shoes, suddenly touching the MPD device, being teleported to the moon, suddenly touching this device, and then starting to hear voices in your head, not knowing where these voices are coming from, not being able to drown them out at all. And to a certain extent, it was kind of like schizophrenia. Richtofen was dealing with voices that everyone thought he was crazy, no one believed him, and to a certain extent it kind of was the symptoms of schizophrenia. Now, we do know now that those voices were real and they were trying to manipulate him, but at the time Richtofen himself was unaware of what was going on. So he had these voices in his head, and I'm assuming even he thought maybe that he was schizophrenic, and so it started to cause these symptoms like hallucinations, delusions, and then some of the negative symptoms often include being emotionally flat or speaking in a dull, disconnected way, which was something that Richtofen had. They show little interest in life or sustain relationships. Negative symptoms are sometimes confused with clinical depression. So we do know one thing. One of these symptoms is not something that Richtofen had. Richtofen definitely went through with everything that he tried to do. Despite how crazy they were, Richtofen definitely went through and completed the tasks that he set about. But all of these other symptoms, like not having a sustained relationship, showing little interest in life, that's why he would experiment on people, and you know, some of these symptoms were Richtofen before touching the MPD. Some of these other symptoms are stuff that happened to him after touching the MPD. So we all know that after he came in contact with the MPD device on the moon, they realized that the way to power this thing was through souls, through human life. And so Richtofen basically was like, all right, we'll line up all these dudes and kill them so he can power on this thing. So again, that's a symptom here of schizophrenia, where he shows little interest in life. So this is very interesting because it means that while Richtofen didn't necessarily have schizophrenia because because it was actually someone talking to him and not just imaginary voices that he thought he was hearing, it still affected him on a mental level, and he started to get some of these symptoms. If you guys want to learn a little bit more about schizophrenia, I'm going to go ahead and put a link to NAMI.org in the description below. It's where I got this information that I'm talking to you about today. They have an overview, treatment, support, a whole bunch of other stuff. It's actually something that was dealt with a long time ago, and it's actually very, very interesting because schizophrenia has kind of become something that you're able to treat, to work through. And before, it was kind of like you get a lobotomy and you stop hearing voices, and this was a thing that we saw a lot of sanatoriums, we saw a lot of asylums, because people would hear voices in their heads and they'd basically do lobotomies on them and they would become useless. And so, you know, this is actually pretty interesting because it harkens back to Verrucht, which was a insane asylum, and there was probably a bunch of people in there that had schizophrenia, and all of these people were probably being experimented on by Richtofen, who also was having schizophrenia-like symptoms. So let's go through the history now. So now we know a little bit about schizophrenia. Let's talk about the MPD. Let's talk about the changes to Richtofen. Well, basically Richtofen, for you guys that don't, I'm just going to try to make long story short here. He was trying to create this matter transference device, also known as a teleporter. He was working through this. Dr. Maxis said it was a waste of time after they teleported a walnut, and said that there was no way this was ever going to work. Richtofen kept working on it. Eventually it ended up working, and it teleported him to the moon. We have a radio message here, courtesy of Action Pact, and you guys can listen to what happened basically to Richtofen. He was teleported to the moon, didn't know where he was. He explains a little bit about where he is. He discovers the MPD, which is that pyramid device, touches it, and then proceeds to think that he's talking to Dr. Schuster when in fact he's already talking to the Apothecon. So let's go ahead and listen to that radio message.
Is there a power outage? Why is it so dull? I feel almost weightless. How very unexpected. Dr. Schuster? Hello? There. I can see now. Oh my God. I'm standing in a circular cave, surrounded by some kind of machinery. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. It looks almost alien in nature. There's a pyramid structure in the center of the room. I'm going to try and carefully touch it. It's smooth to the touch. Very cold. Not a speck of dust. Might be hollow. The chamber is quite large. It even looks like capacitors in the ceiling of the chamber, but there are no obvious connections to anything electrical. But it is this place. Dr. Schuster? Dr. Schuster? Look at this. It seems to be covered in some kind of hieroglyphic language. I've not seen anything like it before. Why are you whispering to me? There's no need for that. This is loose. Do you hear that? It sounds like... My God. What happened? I seem to be in some kind of jungle. I can't be certain if I am.
Log entry 43. Date January 23rd, 1940. I cannot be certain what happened to Dr. Richtofen once the tests commenced. He just disappeared from the machine into thin air. I have searched the area for days and have no evidence that he is anywhere. I am afraid I might have to scrap the...
Not scrap anything. We've done something. Something wondrous. Shh. Do you hear them?
Dr. Richtofen, you're alive.
I'm more than alive, Mr. Schuster. Is the device still intact?
Yes, but what happened to you?
Ah, something wonderful. That chamber was incredible. The wonders we can learn.
What are you talking about? Are you all right?
Get in the matter transference prototype, Dr. Schuster. We have worked.
Alright, so after he touched the MPD, this is where Richtofen essentially started to become insane. He started getting even more of these schizophrenic symptoms. He started disregarding life. He started having terrible relationships, unsustained relationships. He started having hallucinations, delusions. He thought he was going to become this great god and take over the world. And again, it wasn't necessarily schizophrenia because the voices were real, but he was being affected on a mental level like someone who is schizophrenic because he didn't know where this voice was coming from, and he didn't probably even know he was being manipulated by this voice. Fast forward, you can see a few more radio messages of Richtofen talking about voices and how they're super loud in his head. And I even made a video years ago that was a Zombies Theories video. This was before Black Ops 3, before we learned about Dr. Monty, the Shadow Man, the Apothecons, all this crazy stuff. Years ago I made a video talking about Richtofen and how he wasn't alone, that there was someone, some hidden character, some hidden entity that was manipulating him. This is one of the videos that I'm actually super proud of, and if you guys want to see it, I'll try to link it down below. And again, keep in mind, I made that video before we got confirmation of anything in Black Ops 3 like the Apothecon or the Shadow Man or Dr. Monty. You know, before we knew any of that, I had made this video talking about this hidden entity that was controlling Richtofen and how not a lot of people were really talking about it. And it kind of foreshadowed what would happen in a Black Ops 3, which is really, really cool. So Richtofen touches the MPD, he starts having these schizophrenic type symptoms, and then proceeds to follow the path of the corrupted Apothecons. He starts doing what they want him to do. He's being manipulated. He's a puppet. And you can actually possibly hear a little bit of these voices in the Rayz intro cutscene, and I'm gonna go ahead and play that here in a little bit. But basically you hear this weird demonic voice, and it's talking to Stuhlinger, and as he's talking to this guy, he's like talking to him, he's telling him what to do. Then you hear Richtofen. Whenever I saw this, made me think like, yo, this might be the Apothecons also talking with Richtofen to Stuhlinger. And I just think it's actually pretty interesting. I always felt like the voice that you heard in the Rayz intro cutscene was the voice of the Apothecons mixed in with Richtofen. Obviously, Richtofen has also had his demonic voice that he does whenever he's doing power-up and stuff like that. But I think that, and again, this is just a theory there, that the voice you hear in Rayz is actually the Apothecon, and then you can hear Richtofen later on, because at this point, Richtofen was already basically in control of zombies. You could hear his voice, he could talk to people who ate zombie flesh, and I wanted to talk about that. I feel like once Richtofen became able to speak to zombies and speak to people who ate the zombies, by way of that voice that he was hearing was also being projected onto Stuhlinger and to anyone that heard this voice as well.
I don't understand. Why are you doing this? Why me? Travel where? Don't you get it? There's nothing left! Oh, how did you... What? What do you mean, mend the rift? Well, maybe I don't wanna. Huh? Did you think of that? Oh, you can't tell them about the flesh! What I did, they'd kill me if they knew. Ah, shit! I don't understand.
What are you talking about, Stuhlinger? Misty made it pretty clear.
Except for fate, begin anew!
We're going down! We're going down! Fight!
Which screwed with a lot of people. You already had Dr. Maxis trying to talk to people, trying to come up with his own scheme to save Samantha. And then you also had Richtofen who was talking to people. And it's actually pretty crazy how much the whole idea of schizophrenia, or the idea behind these disembodied voices that are speaking to you in your head that no one else can hear, plays into the history of zombies. We had Richtofen who was hearing voices who ended up being the Apothecons. We had the Flesh who were followers of Richtofen who didn't know who he was, but they were hearing voices. You had the Buried crew who was being manipulated by Dr. Maxis. You had also another version of this was Dr. Maxis in Origins, where Samantha started talking to him and eventually everyone thought he was going insane as well. So we have a lot of examples of schizophrenic behavior or schizophrenic situations. I thought it was very interesting that we have something like this, schizophrenia. It started with Richtofen where he was touching the MPD, and we have just a bunch of examples of disembodied voices talking to characters, and I thought it was pretty interesting. So I wanted to talk a little bit about schizophrenia. So by Black Ops 3, obviously we learn about the Apothecons, we learn about the corrupted ones, and we learn that they were the ones who started to manipulate Richtofen and were the ones that were kind of puppeteering him to do their will so that they could break out and take over the universe. We learn all about that throughout the history of Black Ops 3. So I thought that was actually pretty cool that they went back, explained a little bit about Richtofen, what he was hearing in his head, and just kind of expanded it and made it something bigger in Black Ops 3 Zombies. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. I might have felt like I was rambling on or talking about different things at once, but the main theme here was schizophrenia. I wanted to talk about schizophrenia, how it affected multiple people, specifically focus on Richtofen, who was the biggest example of this, and how it wasn't really schizophrenia, but the effects of having someone in your head caused him to change and to essentially be puppeted into doing whatever the Apothecons or the corrupted ones wanted him to do. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. I actually felt inspired to make this video after I talked about zombies yesterday. I was looking at different things in zombies, like I wanted to look at characters and themes and stuff like that, and I realized there's a bunch of stuff I didn't talk about that I wanted to talk a little bit about and kind of do real world aspects to that. So I don't know if this is origins or theories or something completely different, but I just wanted to talk about zombies and a theme that was recurring in the history or the storyline of Call of Duty Zombies, which was the schizophrenia thing. We got the time loops, we also got schizophrenia. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you guys could do me the huge favor of dropping a like on the video, it lets me know that you guys enjoyed this and you want to see even more content, and it also shares it around for people to see. So if you could share it on Twitter, on Facebook, it really does help out. If you are new to the channel, if you enjoy zombies content, Call of Duty content, Fortnite content, then feel free to subscribe. I try to upload every single day, so if you don't want to miss a single video, subscribe and turn on notifications so you can get those notifications whenever I do upload. And if you do want to directly support the channel, feel free to join my sponsor squad. You get early content, exclusive content, special badges in the comment section of videos. You don't have to, but if you are willing and able to do it, then by all means I encourage it. It helps me out tremendously. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. Follow me on Twitter, best place to talk. I do have a gaming channel and a second channel, both links down below to that, and I'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.